On this day, August 8th, 2012, at 10:30 a.m., a meeting of the Committee on Administration of the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District is being held in the eighth floor room of the Administration Building, located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Chair Vice President Armstrong,
Here.
Vice Chair Commissioner Lavelle, President Trobert,
Here.
Commissioner Hanlon,
Here.
Commissioner Koldyke.
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Salgado, General Superintendent Michael Kelly, and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item number 1, from the General Counsel, amendment to Chapter 3 of the Code of the Chicago Park District.
May it please the Board, General Superintendent Lupe Garcia, General Counsel. This is a simple amendment to Chapter 3 of the Ethics Code, which would allow us to do a few things. It would allow the employees to file their statements electronically. We are considering the possibility of purchasing either a software program or some way of automating the process, much like the Cook County Board of Ethics does. So they would receive their ethics forms by mail and would be, electronically, and would also then be able to respond electronically. And clearly this would save on paper, but also it would give us greater assurances that we would get them back. We have a group of filers who consistently file late, and so we're hoping that this will help them. Then also it would allow us to hand deliver the ethics statements to those individuals who are either unable to get them through the computer or have difficulty getting them through the mail. And that is pretty much it for now. Any questions?
Will the Secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
I move to approve the item. Second.
I'll take a roll call. Chair Vice President Armstrong,
Here. Aye.
aye. President Trobert,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanlon,
Aye.
Commissioner Koldyke.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2, from the Director of Policy and Strategy, presentation of the mission statement and 2012 Comprehensive Plan of the Chicago Park District.
Thank you, Commissioners. So as the letter stated, I'll be presenting Gio Biaggi, Director of Strategy and Policy. So I'll be presenting a number of things this morning. The larger topic here is the comprehensive plan, and I'll explain what that means for the Park District. And as part of this conversation, one of the reasons we're here before you today is to make sure that we're in compliance with best practices for planning for parks and recreation agencies. And we're in fact going through accreditation right now, and we have the Commission on Accreditation that's here this week, actually going through all of our documents exhaustively and looking at how we're organized and how we plan. So one of the requirements is that we discuss the comprehensive plan, strategic plan and mission, and the recreation plan with the board. So I'm going to go over these 3 elements and explain how they interrelate. So this is just the table of contents from a 700-page document that was in your attachments. And really, the comprehensive plan is a construct of key critical management plans: the strategic plan, recreation and program plan, capital improvement plan, and the budget, all supplemented by our interactions with community and stakeholders and incorporating that input. So as one of my colleagues who's a lot smarter than me said, comprehensive plan, it's a process and it's an object. Right? Combined, it's these big elements here of those 4 circles you see up there, driven by our mission and values. But it's also this process where the mission and values kind of set the stage for what we care about and the direction we're going. The strategic plan lay out those goals and those benchmarks, and then it pushes through our whole organization, setting the table for recreation program planning that supports our mission and values and our strategic goals, which then is supported by our capital improvement plan. That's really investing in the physical plant to support the recreation we need to offer. And then the budget, of course, which sets the parameters for doing those things. Those items together with integrating the input of stakeholders really constitutes our comprehensive plan for the organization. So at this time, I'm going to switch to a different technology, so forgive me for a second.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Shalavy has joined the meeting.
So I'm going to start by going over the strategic plan. Okay, so before you today is hot off the press, a strategic plan for the Park District. In my conversation with Friends of the Parks yesterday and Irma Trander, she confirmed that the last time the district had done a strategic plan in her memory was 1994. So we are nearly 2 decades overdue for a strategic plan. This process began almost 2 years ago when we worked with the Monitor Group and the Civic Consulting Alliance to start developing a strategic direction. And from there, we needed to turn that direction and that evaluation of our mission and values into actual goals with performance measures and real benchmarks for success. So in front of you today is the document, and this is the table of contents really outlines it. So I'm going to walk you through the book that's in front of you. But really, the plan outlines our core values, which we've refreshed based on this long dialogue we've been in, and then discusses our key goals and then voices in the process. So really, one of the focuses has been our mission and our values. The mission statement you'll see there should look very familiar. Enhance the quality of life in Chicago, being a leading provider of recreation, safe, inviting, beautifully maintained parks and facilities, and create a customer-focused and responsive park system. Those are all things that through the process we affirm. These are all things that we want to be and do. But what we've added to the mission statement is the last clause of the third point, which is a customer-focused and responsive park system that prioritizes the needs of children and families. And what we learned in our process of extensive dialogue from you, the board, who participated in a number of conversations, all the way down to park supervisors, through mining, through the last 3 years' worth of public hearings information that came from community meetings and budget hearings and that sort of thing. What we learned is that while we obviously serve children and families and we obviously care about them, we hadn't said it, that children come first in a long time. And that was a very important turn for our organization. So that leads to our values. So we have had Open, Active, Green, Connected as values that we were working with for a while, and through this process of re-examining what we're about, we have 4 new core values. Children first. So, and I rarely read off of PowerPoint slides, but I will do it today. Our most important task is to bring children and families into our parks and give them great reasons to stay and play for a lifetime. We're one of the few organizations in this town, in any major city, that works with people from the minute they're born until their last step and last breath. So we offer that whole gamut, but it's very important for us to focus to get kids in our parks early, and so they keep coming back, not lose them while they're teens, they're back in their 20s, and they're staying there bringing their own children there in the future. It's that continuum that we are articulating here today. Being the best deal in town. We prioritize quality in our programs, accountability in our fiscal management, provide excellent and affordable recreation that invites everyone. And that key of being both affordable and high quality, that's the balance we're going to strike, and we do strike. Built to last. We use our capital to renew our aging infrastructure and leverage partnerships to produce facilities that are forward-thinking and world-class. And then extra effort. This piece of sort of moving from a good organization to a great organization means that we need to do those extra things, like bringing in new technologies, experimenting, sometimes, failing with our experiments, but learning and coming in with new adaptations to our environment. Communication, teamwork, and great customer service being something that we've talked about, but now we're going to talk about it deliberately and roll out the training and the support so we can all give good customer service to people coming in to use the parks and to each other. And that will make the organization better as a whole. So children first, as I said, our most important customers are children. One of the things that we've been looking carefully at are where children are in the city. This is a map, and it sort of exemplifies the kind of analysis we're doing now. Where do we have high densities of children? And one of the key issues facing children that pertains to us is childhood obesity, which is an epidemic. And if you look at this graph, you can see the continuum really from the early 90s, this kind of exponential increase in obesity rates across the United States, and that's something that we need to address in Chicago. And when we look at where we have densities of children, that's the same place where we have high incidence of diabetes, high incidence of obesity. And so much of our programming is oriented around getting kids and families healthy and fit. And every child in a park, I steal a lot from corporate literature, and there's this idea of a big fat hairy goal, like a super goal. And every child in the park is a thing that fits with us. This is that it seems unattainable. We have 600,000 kids in the city of Chicago. But if we put as this super goal, every child in a park, and that is your North Star, it changes the way you do business. And that is how we're focused. And we had a banner year in summer enrollment. If you look at the trends from 2010 to 2012, everybody from the top all the way down to the people in the parks who are working with customers on a daily basis, everyone pulled in that extra effort and brought in more kids than we've ever seen before into our summer programs, more people overall than we've ever seen before. So we are on this upward trend. And then we have some key goals, which are also in the back of the document, but you can see a couple that are really important. Strategically addressing areas of the city where we have low program enrollment, expanding childhood fitness, and setting real, measurable benchmarks for children in camp. So, best deal in town, prioritizing excellent and affordable recreation. So one of the things that we're focused on, and this was the subject of a lot of dialogue, was how you balance needing revenue and trying to get as many families and children into your parks as possible without raising property taxes and keep it affordable. So our focus is on non-tax revenue. What are the economic engines that we have, whether it's Soldier Field or harbors or other innovative ideas that can bring more revenue in and not be an additional burden to the taxpayers? Events like Lollapalooza that we just had, where we're able to use our facility, Grant Park, in a smart way with a long-term agreement that nets revenue like we've never seen before for these kinds of events that pay for programs and they pay for capital improvements across the system. Built to last, investing for today and tomorrow. And this is making that link between the legacy of historic institutions that we've inherited. We have, as you all know, we have amazing assets that are difficult to maintain. So how do we create a budget where we can maintain those facilities, continue to invest, support the programming that we want to need, and do what's required to make ourselves more sustainable as in terms of our physical plant? So a great example of investing in a capital project that nets revenue for the system, are like our new harbor at 31st Street, which this is the kind of investment where we're able to issue a revenue bond. We include the public benefits, so it's a balance. It's not just a harbor, but it's a brand new parkland. It's a brand new playground. It's this wholesale investment that's going to produce revenue for us for the long term. And then other key goals. One of the examples in the booklet is of McFetridge Ice Arena and Indoor Tennis Center, where we're using our energy performance contracting methods to invest, to reduce the operating costs by huge margins, and then redevelop an ice rink so it's functioning properly. Things like changing out the light fixtures alone will save us hundreds of thousands every year on that facility. It's an investment for the long term, and it's done through performance contracting, so we're paying it back in the cost savings in that project. And then extra effort. How do we work harder, smarter, and do it together? So one of the things that we've been looking at is integrating analytics into our daily thinking. So moving really from guts to analytics. What we found is what we thought was happening in our parks is generally true. Our instincts are very good, but now we have the data to support it. So we've been developing new tools. This Tableau public tool is actually a shareware file where we've taken the new enrollment data that we can get. Now that we have ActiveNet, we're able to do analysis we've never been able to do before. And so we've created a tool that we're training all of our staff in how to use, where you can look and find out exactly at what time of day, what zip code registered for what program in what park, and what were the characteristics of the people who did that. So we can get down to that granular detail of what's happening on the ground, but then we can also look at it globally. And you'll see below that was a Google Earth tool that we're creating. So the Tableau is really interesting, but now we're saying, well, we need to make sure that we have tools that work for everyone. And so we're creating a Google Earth version that we're beginning to use internally, and then we're going to roll out so the public can do it. Part of our new ethic is that let the wisdom of the crowds tell you what they want to see with your data. We're going to do that with app development and all kinds of things. And so we're trying to create tools that work with both internally for us, but also externally. And then things like looking at our social media analytics at Foursquare. How many check-ins have we had? That's an indicator also of usage that you might not capture anywhere else. We always have a hard time capturing who's using the parks that's not registered for something. This is another way to do that. So we have these key goals, things like expanding network connectivity that you've heard Tanya Anthony and Steve Maris talk about to all staff locations by the end of the year, and a long-term plan for information technology, which she's working on. Developing new teen marketing campaign. You've heard from us about Digitas and all the work that our communications department is doing to really reach out as well with our programs division. And then engaging the community in our strategic planning discussions going forward. This is a living document. I handed you a piece of paper today, but this needs to evolve. And in fact, this goal came out of a conversation with Friends of the Parks yesterday, where we went through what you're seeing now, and we talked about the need to make sure that up front and center is our ongoing engagement with the community and new ways to engage. So these are examples of voices that we pulled in the process. And as I mentioned, Friends of the Parks, their budget testimony in 2011 saying we need to see the fruit of capital projects that reduce utility costs. We're addressing that. We had a West Chatham Park user come to a public hearing and say we need better communication between CPD and the community. We've set up our goals to address that. At the executive level, we've done a series of roundtables. Excuse me. Our organizational structure needs the flexibility to help staff do what they do best. We have a lot of talent. We need to have the framework so our talent can thrive. And park supervisor roundtables, we need to figure out how to address capacity, more staff, move staff, expand facilities. We're now able to look at it from a global perspective and from a local perspective with the new data we have, and then pulling all the voices in the room. You know, I said it was a 2-year process of multiple meetings. We had really amazing feedback from park supervisors, area managers, region managers, department heads working with the chiefs on SWOT analysis, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. All of that fed into this, and every person who gave us an idea or some feedback should be thanked, and I am thanking you for your involvement in this process because it was really robust. So that needs to translate into benchmarks. And so what we've done is taken the key strategic goals and assigned essentially timelines and detail that's in the booklet, and we'll put this up online this week, and it falls underneath each rubric. What you should know is that there are also departmental goals that are underneath all of these as well, and that's something that we track, both of these, in our performance management system and the work that Kenny Tassone has done to really follow up with each department and make sure that we're on task and hitting our benchmarks. So for each of those core values, built to last, extra effort, we have goals. So that's the overview of the strategic plan. And that is that first component of a comprehensive plan. The next piece of it, and I can answer questions about the strategic plan, or the next piece I wanted to discuss and invite Vaughn Bryant to talk about is the recreation program plan, which is the next key component of the comprehensive plan. Vaughn?
Okay, so just piggybacking on some of the things that Gia had to say, she talked about a big, hairy goal. We call it a BHAG. One of the things that I've thought about is having the fittest kids in the United States. Every year, there's a publication that comes out that measures the obesity rates of kids across the country, and we don't do well. We are probably in the bottom 10th percentile in terms of childhood obesity, and so that's an easy, goal for us to look at as a park district. Here. So in our recreational plan, we had to lay out, our structure. We have divisions, we have a particular philosophy and methods about going about doing our work. And here's our org chart, which is sort of hard to see, but that gives you an idea of our 3 divisions, which is sailing, wellness, aquatics, and gymnastics. We have a sports division that encompasses all of our sports and special recreation and professional development. And then we have our culture, arts, and nature. And then on the other side, there's our region staff. As far as our philosophy is concerned, we, like Gia said, want every citizen to have access to our programs. Over the course of the time I've been here, one of the things I've recognized is that every park can't be everything to the citizens in the surrounding that park, and so we have to go to more of a network of park systems. So within a 2-mile radius, you should be able to get every category we have, but you may have to go to 2 or 3 parks versus just going to that one park. Another thing we recognize is where the trends are going in recreation and childhood obesity. Healthcare costs are all things that are, coming up for us. And so wellness is one of the areas where we're going to, make a committed focus. As many of you guys know, that the city of Chicago has a new wellness initiative where city employees are opting into the wellness initiative. And so, we're trying to reconfigure ourselves to be that affordable, best deal in town so that all of our citizens can have an affordable fitness option, because we know not everyone can go to a private health club. Okay, so our method of analysis, when we look at who we serve, clearly youth and early childhood is an area where we serve a lot of people. I would also couple that with all ages and families as well, as those two should really go together, because most youth and early childhood is going to incorporate the parents. So like a good example would be at Women's Park. Some of the community members got together to build sort of an indoor park so that parents and early childhood providers could bring their kids to Women's Park and have an indoor park where they all meet and sort of have a play date. And those are the sort of things and offerings that are good for us, because you can use it in a passive way. It's not necessarily instruction based, but that's us meeting the needs of the community and listening to what the community has to say. This slide basically gives you a sense of our programmatic offerings between 2010 and 2011. There's been a 10% increase in fitness, and that's a trend that will continue to rise. And there's an overall increase. I would say that one area where this looks like a small percentage, but I think we're probably the most efficient is our gymnastics area, and I think that speaks to early childhood. That I think gymnastics is probably our best area, I would say, right now, and I think we're going to grow in the wellness department. So key priorities: every child in the park, off the streets and into the park, and giving teens alternatives. Our long-term goals are really to figure out our day camp attendance. So I think that's something that we have to continue to get good at. If we looked at our enrollment over the course of 2012, even though we did better, there's still a lot of room for improvement. In areas where there's high density of kids and high crime, we still have low attendance. And so we have to, first figure out strategically what our competition is, who's offering free programs, and figure out a way to get more kids in our parks that way. The other thing is, in order for us to be the best game in town, we already have the fees, I think, at a good level, but our quality of service, as long as that continues to get better, then we will have that balance of not only cheap, but high quality performance. And so that means that our customer service has to be better and our professionalism has to be better. New neighborhood sports. I think we have a great opportunity for girls sport leagues that we don't necessarily have as many as we should have. And then I also think that, there's room for growth in alternative sports like lacrosse and soccer in areas where we don't have our own sort of in-house leagues. I think the rest of this is things teen programs, actually, I wanted to talk about. So I think in the teen area, part of the reason, the field at least says that we don't do as well is because teens want autonomy. In terms of how they choose their programming. And I think that, it's our job to stay in front of what the trends are in terms of what teens want. And I think this is an area where our strategic partnerships will play a much bigger role. So one of the things we're working on is STEM education. I was able to visit a potential partner the other day that was at Kenwood Academy. And they had, like a room maybe half this size, and they were building putt-putt golf holes. And so they had the wood, they had the grass, and they were all teens, and they were fully engaged. That's something we don't necessarily do in the Park District, but that's something that I think could engage teens. So things like that are things that I'll be exploring in order to get our teens involved. We know that technology is an area where our teens like, and we know that that's growing in the future. And so we have to think outside the box in terms of the type of programs that we want to bring to the parks. Short-term goals, I think teen advisory councils is important. When we look at our new sort of management system in terms of program quality, one of the measures is how engaged our teens are in terms of being able to provide feedback. And so having a teen advisory council is one way to hear from them in terms of what they want, so we can provide that offering, not unlike our park advisory councils. Accommodate the track E schedule. One of the areas we want to sort of expand on is our nature education. And so if there's ways for us during those intercession times to offer programs that are nature related, we think that's an area, especially like when we look at Calumet, a new facility that we've had, that we could actually offer camping overnight in our own space, and we don't have to leave the city to do that. I think another major area is our Learn to Swim enrollees. With our new ActiveNet system, I think we'll be more efficient in terms of not only offering everyone a free Learn to Swim, but moving people along in terms of their swimming capability, and making sure people don't repeat the free, but move on to a new level. And we probably have to look at whether or not we're going to charge for things beyond the initial Learn to Swim. So I think that's the area we have to look at. New Family Fitness I've already addressed. And I think that's it for me. And unless you guys have any questions, I'll go back to Gia.
So now you've heard from the two key components at the front end of the comprehensive plan, and you've already approved the capital plan and the budget for 2012. And so those are the pillars that our comprehensive planning stand on. And sort of, to bundle them together, mission and values inform the strategic plan, which is setting goals and benchmarks for the whole organization, which is driving the comprehensive recreation program plan that Vaughn just discussed, supported by the capital plan, and ultimately the budget. And together, those make up the comprehensive plan. So that was a lot. Vaughn and I can answer any questions and have any dialogue you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like to, let me lead off. I'm sure there's plenty of comments here, but allow me to lead off. First of all, you mentioned the big hairy idea. This process was, this is a big hairy thing. This is a big deal that we thank you guys for putting together, and I thank the board for their involvement. Just to tell a quick story, this started over 2 years ago, just before I came on board. Gary Chico, predecessor, tried to get this thing rolling, and it was kind of dead in the water, and we got it going. The board spent a lot of time on it, as did the staff. And then with a leadership transition, again, it almost died, but Mike and Gia and Vaughn and the rest of the staff really breathed life in and took what was rather a thin document and fleshed it out in a great way that I think will make a real difference to the Park District. And I think the most encouraging thing here, we've all been involved in strategic planning processes. Sometimes you end up with a document that has a lot of ideas. This has the accountability, the end of this thing, if you look at it, this has specific goals. Each manager was forced to take the strategic plan and then specifically develop things, performance indicators that they would deliver on, and a timetable that they deliver on. Now we've got to perform, we've got to execute, but we're set up to do that. And as has been pointed out, this process hasn't been done for a long time, and the self-examination and thought that went into it have to pay us benefits, but executing on it will pay us even more benefits. So we're greatly appreciative to Mike and Gia, Vaughn, the whole team, the community that was involved, the board that spent time on this, and I think it'll make a very, very big difference. I just want to say one more thing. Oftentimes, I'm sure the other commissioners hear the same thing. Hey, people say, oh, God, you're involved in the Park District, and that budget's been flat for 7 years, and you've got old infrastructure, and it's government, and what can you really do? And this is the type of thing you can do. You can seek excellence, you can plan, you can hire the best people and support them. You can set goals with accountability. And work on you attack waste, fraud, and abuse. You develop public-private partnerships, and you engage the community. You invite outside people like we do to take a hard look at us and tell us how we can be better. And those are the things that you can do with flat budgets and other challenges. And so I'm really encouraged. What I hope that we'll do is hold ourselves to the goals that we've set, and we'll revisit this regularly and make sure that we perform on it. But this is a big deal, and we're greatly, greatly appreciative for this wonderful work product.
Great. And thank you for the support of the board and you, Mr. President, in particular, and really Mike's leadership. I've been at the Park District for a long time, and it's been an absolute pleasure working on this project. And it's due to Mike's direction and seeing that there was a need for this.
I just want to state for the record, you hit the core value extra effort on this. So, gee, my hat's off to you. My hat's off to Vaughn. My hat's off to all my chiefs. The effort, it really did start from the board, and it worked its way all the way down on those Saturdays with the board, down to the park supervisor level. This wasn't put together just by folks downtown. We did get out. We did talk to folks. I'm proud of this document. I'm proud of what we've accomplished in really a short amount of time. And I'm excited about the future of where we're going. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo obviously what everyone has said, the president and the superintendent. I'm pleased with the fact that there's not only a goal but a plan, and more importantly, the hard work is going to be the implementation and accountability. But also, it's not general. There are a lot of specific things. Obviously, our children first is the most important aspect, but things such as Vaughn mentioned, taking Track E for the public schools into account, I think is very important. The obesity issue, having options for the people who attend the park at all ages, from birth till whatever. So I want to compliment everyone for all their hard work and effort, and but there's still a lot of work ahead to make sure that there's accountability and follow-up on this. Thank you.
Commissioner, mark my words, this will not, like a lot of plans, like a lot of ideas, this will not go on the shelf. This will be on people's desks.
We have a member of the public who would like to address the board. Ms. Irma Trenter.
Good morning.
Good morning.
President Traubert, Commissioners, Superintendent Kelly, staff. We're here to congratulate you on this plan. It's outstanding. We met with Gia last night, went through it. I had the chance to read it in detail. And as Gia said, the thing I recall was 1994, 1995 was the last strategic plan, sort of, and that was done by an outside consulting firm doing it pro bono, McKinsey & Company, pro bono for the Park District. And almost 20 years have gone by. So this is indeed a great step forward. I think it consolidates things. You have to rethink. We all have to rethink where we are, where we're going, what our goals are. And this document really, what I think is a benefit by it is that it came from within over a long period of time. Initiated 2 years ago, but whatever time it took you to finally, to put this thing together was with input from people who know recreation, they're experts in it, from the managers down to park supervisors to area managers to regional managers who really know what the communities are like. And I think it has the reality of what Chicago is, and it has goals based on that. And the other great thing, it has goals for 12. And goals for 13 on. And those really reflect sort of our culture today, the idea of we really do have to go with children. We've got to have the alternatives, be the best that we can be for children, and make sure that they're not, on the street corners, but within parks doing recreation. The whole idea of fitness and health, and how the Park District can really be the leading force in providing those inexpensive fitness opportunities.
Please make your closing remarks.
One last thing on I love the specific goals. If you look at page 8 on the recreation plan, even the specificity on the customer service segment alone is like, I mean, it sounds pretty basic, but they really have guidelines. Don't let somebody sit on the phone for more than a minute. Get back to them within a certain time.
You have exceeded
And
your
I
2
think
minutes.
that will definitely, it just will get everybody on the same page and work together. And we're, Friends of the Parks is really happy to spread the word on this to the community park advisory councils on the web page, because it is a great document. And we congratulate you. Thank you.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 3, from the Treasurer, tax levy ordinance for the year 2012.
Good morning, Commissioners. So before you this morning is the 2012 tax levy ordinance. The district is empowered by Section 19 of the Chicago Park District Act to levy a real estate tax. The ordinance sets out the dollar amount and the purpose for the 2012 levy. The tax levy ordinance is somewhat similar in appearance to the 2012 annual appropriation ordinance passed by this board in December. The total amount of the 2012 levy is $259,910,657. What the levy is going to do is it's going to support our general operations. It supports the aquarium and museums, our pension. It makes debt service payments, and it also supports our therapeutic rec programs. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any significant changes to what we approved?
No, actually, the only changes that you're going to see is in the debt service piece, and it's really a matter of timing. So the budget is going to talk about the debt service payments that are made in this calendar year. The levy is going to, because it's actually collected next year, it's going to make next year's debt service payments. But in terms of where we're at with our debt service levy, it's pretty much flat. But there are slight variances from year to year.
Okay, thank you. So moved. Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Thank you.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 4, from the First Deputy General Counsel, authorization to amend the existing grant agreement with the Trust for Public Land for the continuation of the Bloomingdale Trail Civic Engagement and Stewardship Project.
Good morning, Commissioners, Superintendent Kelly, President Traubert, General Counsel Garcia, Timothy King, First Deputy General Counsel and Legislative Director, and I'm here to recommend that the Board of Commissioners authorize the extension of the term and amendment of the existing challenge grant agreement originally adopted by the Board in 2010 with the Trust for Public Land. The grant agreement is for the purpose of implementing and coordinating the Bloomingdale Trail Civic Engagement and Stewardship Project, which is one of the largest undertakings in CPD history in terms of scope, duration, and geographical impact upon Chicago. The original challenge grant agreement authorized by the board and approved in 2010 is scheduled to terminate on December 31st, 2012. It is recommended that the grant agreement be amended to change the term and extend it to August 31st of 2015. This amendment will also authorize the district to contribute an additional $450,000 to be dispersed to the Trust for Public Land for their role as project coordinator. Right now, I'd like to talk about some of the deliverables that we've received to date in Phase 1 of this challenge grant. So far, $7 million has been secured for the Bloomingdale project. The Trust for Public Land has established the Bloomingdale Leadership Council to guide the project and support the fundraising campaign, which is ongoing. The Trust for Public Land has led a successful civic engagement process during Phase 1 engineering and design. They've held a privately funded 4-day design charrette, which generated hundreds of community comments and input. They've conducted dozens of interactive public meetings, events, neighborhood gatherings, and guided walks, and they've launched civic engagement activities for Phase 2 engineering and design. And they've also provided $500,000 in additional funding and project management for grade level improvements at Milwaukee Levitt Access Park. up to $2 million of the design fee paid by the Chicago Park District, and the remainder of the contract is to be paid for by the Trust for Public Land pursuant to a separate board letter adopted by the board in March of 2012. As stated so far, the Trust has already secured $7 million towards the project, and at the time of the signing of the amendment, the TPL will transfer $2 million to the Park District to pay for the remainder of the design fees. At this time, we have Rob Raymond, our Director of Capital Construction, and we have Beth White from Trust for Public Land, who can supplement or be available to answer any questions about the project to date.
And I would like to say, this is Rob Raymond, Director of Planning, Construction, and Facilities. I would like to say a few words in that we're working with Trust for Public Land every day on this project. And between the fundraising, civic engagement, the acquisition, design, and arts integration consulting, and the project management, all of these things are multifaceted and very time-consuming tasks. They've been a great partner. The project would not be where it is today without their involvement. And the benefits of the long-term stewardship and ongoing programming that they're working on with us for the Bloomingdale Trail will be a benefit to the Park District for many years to come. So I just wanted to thank Beth and Trust for Public Land for their involvement. They're a great partner to date.
Just a question then, and I've had the pleasure of working with Beth and the Trust for Public Lands, and I think if you look at what's happened in the last 2 years, you'd have to say we've gotten our money's worth. We've spent how much money, and they've raised how much money?
Absolutely, it's in keeping with the board and certainly Superintendent Kelly's mission of leveraging our own dollars to gain that of those of others. And in this case, it's a lot of private fundraising to date. That you speak of $7 million secured to date in exchange for the additional $450,000 investment. So this would put forth another $450,000, and the goal is upwards of $30 million. So. This takes us through 2015. It's an ongoing project, and TPL every day is, scouring the globe for partners, really.
And Beth, raise your hand if anyone wants to participate in the room before the end of the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
For the record, I just need to state my wife is the director of TPL.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 5, from the Director of Purchasing, request to transfer trusteeship of the Viking ship to charitable trust.
President Traubert, Commissioners, General Superintendent, CEO Kelly, good morning. My name is Rafi Sarafian, Director of Purchasing. Pursuant to Chapter 10, Section F, Sub 3 of the Code of the Chicago Park District, I'm here this morning to recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the Chicago Park District's transfer of trusteeship of a replica of a Viking ship to the nonprofit organization Friends of the Viking Ship through an agreed order between the CPD, the Trust Division of the Illinois Attorney General's Office, and the Friends of the Viking Ship. Currently, the Chicago Park District holds in trust for the people of the city of Chicago a replica of a Viking ship that was on display at the 1892 Columbian Exposition and subsequently donated to the Park District in 1920. Since 1934, the CPD has worked to find an appropriate home and purpose for the ship, and for many years it was on display at the Lincoln Park Zoo. In the 1990s, the CPD donated the ship to a nonprofit group that moved the ship to Geneva, Illinois. However, this group ultimately disbanded. The CPD is now seeking to transfer the Viking ship to the Friends of the Viking Ship because this group will be better able to repair, maintain, and display it in a manner celebrating both the Columbian Exposition and the contribution of Norwegians to American life. Friends of the Viking Ship has been identified as an appropriate trustee for the Viking Ship for several reasons. They are a nonprofit organization formed for the sole purpose of caring for and preserving the Viking Ship. They have actively approached the CPD expressing their interest, desire, and willingness to restore and display the ship. In fact, They have already begun seeking new funding sources to begin the restoration, which has been estimated to exceed $415,000. And lastly, Friends of the Viking Ship has agreed to keep the ship in Illinois. Therefore, under Chapter 10, Section F, Sub 3 of the Code of the Chicago Park District, it is recommended that the board approve the transfer of the Viking Ship to the Friends of the Viking Ship. Are there any questions?
Where do they in Chicago?
Where's it going to go?
I'll defer to our law department.
Well, it's currently not in Chicago, so it's going to stay in the hands of the Friends of the Viking Ship people. I'd like to introduce a couple of them if they'd like to come to the mic and talk about their plans for the ship. This is retired Judge Gil Branson and Lorraine Straw.
Good morning. In September of last year, I had the pleasure of talking to President Trauber. He indicated that the board would look favorably on the transfer of the ship in the event that certain legal conditions were met. That assignment was given, as I discussed this with Counsel Garcia. This assignment was then given to Dave Donnersberger, who referred it to Mr. Brown. And I want to commend Mr. Brown on his exemplary research and due diligence to determine that we are, in fact, an eligible group. Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist, said that change is difficult, but made easier when you have a small group of dedicated, focused people. That is exactly the kind of group that the Friends of the Viking Ship represents. I brought with me this morning a young lady who's the president of the Friends of the Viking Ship, and two gentlemen who are distinguished in their own right. They have been knighted by the King of Norway, Honorary Consul General Paul Anderson and the business executive Don Hoganson, all of whom cast a long shadow in our community. Your decision will have a ripple effect because Norwegians throughout the world, not only just in the Chicagoland area where we plan on keeping the boat, it will have a ripple effect. And we expect, and during conversation I had prior to the commencement of the meeting, that we expect Norwegian wallets to open up once this word is transmitted throughout the world that the Viking Ship has indeed been transferred. And I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that you will vote favorably on the recommendations of Council and the requests of the Friends of the Viking Ship. And like President Roosevelt said, be brief, be amusing, and be seated. I'm going to sit down.
Thank you.
I think it's great. Where are you going to put it?
Well, it's in Geneva right now. We have to do a naval survey to determine its ability to be relocated. Right now, it's going to stay. It's covered. It's in a protected status. There are a number of Chicagoland areas that we're going to be considering. We first have to raise the money. It costs a lot of money to move the ship. We have been told that it can perhaps withstand one move. So we are going to be very judicious and careful as to where this boat lands, so to speak. But understand this, that your decision today can be made in good conscience because this is a group that's going to get it done. We have the fire in our belly to get this done. And we will not disappoint the Chicagoland area. We will keep it in here consistent with the 1920 trustee relationship that was established with the Lincoln Park Commissioners. We're not going to breach that trust. You have our word on that.
Last question out of pure curiosity.
Yes, sir.
I haven't seen how big it is.
79 feet long. I think it's 18 feet wide. 16 and a half feet wide. It's a big ship.
It used to be a Lincoln in the zoo.
It was I vaguely remember.
The amazing thing is that it was 11 men and a captain who sailed this ship from Norway in 1892 across the Atlantic. It's an open ship. So when you see this, and please come on out to Geneva and take a look at it. When you see this, you'll say, "Oh my goodness." Well, that's the spirit of dedication and focus that we have to the proper display of this ship, the proper education of the people around it, to get an understanding of part of our heritage, part of our DNA, if you will. And I'll be glad to answer any questions, any additional ones you might have.
Thank you for being here, making such a strong case with your show of dedication and commitment to this. And we all know that in Chicago we have other artifacts, big artifacts from the White City, and that's our Museum of Science and Industry and the Art Institute. So we still have those, even if we'll have to drive to Geneva to see the refurbished Viking ship.
You have an open standing invitation.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 6, from the Director of Purchasing, request to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Chicago Public Library for archival materials.
Good morning again, Rafi Sarafian, Director of Purchasing. Pursuant to Chapter 10, Section F, Sub 4 of the Code of the Chicago Park District, it is recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to transfer various Chicago Park District archival materials to the Chicago Public Library. The Chicago Park District possesses valuable original archival materials such as architectural plans and drawings, photographs, records, and other documents relating to the design, development, and history of Chicago's parks. Although the Park District has digitally scanned and inventoried approximately 80,000 plans and drawings, it lacks the staff, resources, and conditions necessary to continue this process. Tens of thousands of materials remain that require digital preservation. Some of these archival materials are either extremely large, may have sustained damage, or are the work of famous landscape architects and architects such as Frederick Law Olmsted, Jens Jensen, and Daniel Burnham. The Public Library is the most suitable home for these archives for several reasons. Its staff includes professional archivists who are qualified and experienced to organize and conserve the collections. The library is familiar with these transfers as it recently received similar collections related to Millennium Park and the City of Chicago's open space plans. The library has agreed to house the archive collection in one location, the Harold Washington Library, thereby providing public access to the material. Also, the library has agreed to help raise the funds needed to ensure the remaining archives are digitally scanned properly and stored for all to ensure for years to come. Lastly, the close relationship between our organizations will ensure that the Park District staff has quick and ready access to the original materials when needed. The digital scanning of the archives will be an ongoing process, and no Park District material will be transferred to the library until it has been fully inventoried and digitized. Therefore, pursuant to Chapter 10, Section F, Sub 4 of the Code of the Chicago Park District, it is recommended that an intergovernmental agreement is executed with the Chicago Public Library to transfer these archives. Are there any questions?
Rafi, transfer versus ownership.
I'll defer to our law department.
President, the Park District will retain ownership interest through reverter, restrictions, and or co-ownership. The library is not a museum that charges admission. The library is going to invest in staff and make certain other investments to manage the collection properly, have space to store the collection, and raise money through their foundation to pay for the cost of properly digitizing and archiving the collection. This requires a joint ownership interest on the part of the library. So although CPD will certainly retain ownership, and there are, I have a whole list of restrictions that we've come up with in drafting of the various documents that if any of these documents cease to be used in their intended purpose, they would automatically revert back to the Park District. But the libraries, since they are raising upwards of about $100,000 to manage and maintain these materials, they also need to share an interest.
So moved. Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Administration. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against? Motion carried. The Committee on Administration is now adjourned.
On this day, Wednesday, August 8, 2012, a meeting of the Committee on Capital Improvements for the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building, located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Chair Commissioner Koldyke.
Here.
Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado.
Here.
Commissioner Shalaby.
Here.
Commissioner Lavelle. President Trobert.
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Hanlon and Vice President Armstrong, General Superintendent Michael Kelly, and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
The meeting will please come to order. Item number 1 from the Director of Planning, Construction Facilities, authorization to enter into a joint purchase agreement with the City of Chicago for the purchase of roofing materials. Rob?
Good morning again, Commissioners. Pursuant to the joint purchasing agreement between the Chicago Park District and the City of Chicago, it's recommended that the General Superintendent and CEO or his designee enter into a contract with Vermac Services Incorporated for roofing materials and supplies in an amount not to exceed $100,000 annually. The minority and women-owned business enterprise participation for the contract include 95% minority-owned and 5% women-owned. The contractor, Vermac Services Incorporated, is a certified MBE with the City of Chicago. Just a little history on this. The Park District, since 2009, put a bid out for roofing materials 4 times, and only once did we receive a compliant bid. It was awarded formally in 2010 with Aero Lumber. They've since had problems and had been debarred in 2011. The city did issue their contract and got responses through Vermac. It looks like a very good contract for our use. They were the lowest and most responsible bidder in an IFB solicitation by the city, and this contract will allow the Park District to access the goods and services and supply and delivery of roofing materials and supplies. So I'd recommend its passage.
Any questions? Have a motion, please?
Move to accept.
Second. Will the Secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Yes, sir. Chair Commissioner Koldyke.
Aye.
Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado.
Aye.
Commissioner Shalaby.
Aye.
President Trobert.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2 from the Director of Natural Resources, authorization to modify a contract for natural area services.
President Trobert, Commissioners, good morning. My name is Zhana Yermakov. I'm Manager of Natural Resource Conservation and Calumet Development. I'm here to present a letter recommending a modification to the Natural Area Services contract. Before I present the letter, I thought it would be useful to take a few moments to present an overview of the Park District Natural Area Services, Natural Areas Program, what it is and what we have accomplished. The first slide here shows the natural areas that we have across the city. We have over 50 natural areas that include ponds, lagoons, wetlands, prairies, and woodlands. And natural areas are areas of park space that are dedicated to wilderness exploration, nature-based education, native plant biodiversity, and conservation of wildlife habitat. These areas are significant for natural resource conservation. They are home to many endangered species, and the Chicago lakefront a few years ago was designated by the National Audubon Society as an important bird area due to the fact that millions of migratory birds use the city of Chicago as a flyway during their migration. I'd like to present some slides of some natural areas. This is Wooded Island Prairie in Jackson Park. The Wooded Island is a 16-acre natural area. This is a slide of about a month ago where we had a lot of weed trees and weeds just growing in parts of the natural area. So, and the next slide is from yesterday. This is basically from the same vantage point 1 month later to show what we were able to accomplish in 1 month. This is the South Shore Nature Sanctuary. This slide shows weed trees growing behind the cultural center. The natural area is 5 acres, and the next couple of slides shows the after. So native wildflowers and grasses. And this shows a wetland, so this captures the landscape view of this natural area. This slide shows Montrose Beach Dunes before. Montrose Beach Dunes is on the east side of one of our largest beaches. About 10 years ago, this area was mostly sand and some weed trees growing. Next slide, please. This is what it shows. This is the area from this is what it looks like as of yesterday. So what we have now is over 12 endangered species, plant species that are growing in this natural area, and most of the species actually colonize this natural area naturally. The area is over 12 acres and is also home to some endangered migratory birds. This area, this slide actually shows just basically, if you turn around from the previous slide, this is a natural area that in the foreground, the background is hundreds of people playing volleyball to really demonstrate the fact that we have active recreation next to natural areas. This is a slide of Humboldt Wetland. A few years ago, it was a ditch, and now it looks like this. It is now a full functioning wetland. Next slide. And this slide shows a log in the wetland where birds land and turtles bask, and where people can actually view wildlife. This is a slide of Vernon Wildlife Corridor. This is a project that is actually funded by a grant from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. It is a 60-acre natural area that is currently in development. And this is what it looks like after some restoration work has been done. And this slide, the last slide, is really to capture the heart of our mission here at the Park District, and is really to engage the kids and the public in stewardship. And for the matter at hand, it is our recommendation to authorize a modification to the natural areas contract with Pisa & Associates to increase the value of the contract by $2,259,882. The original contract that the board approved last year was based on the annual operating budget of $1,367,290. Since then, we have received additional sources of funds, including capital dollars in the amount of $1.6 million that we used to leverage grant and foundation funding, a total of $577,000. It is through this contract that we primarily enhance and manage our terrestrial natural areas across the Park District, including planting trees, grasses, wildflowers, do trail enhancements, install interpretive signage, and support volunteer stewardship activities. This modification is a great value to the Park District. We received competitive prices for services and materials. In some cases, the prices we received are a quarter or a half of the prices that we had in the past. This modification allows us to lock these prices for additional three years and do a lot more in our natural areas with less cost to the Park District. This modification would also allow us to continue the services with the same contractor, and this continuity of existing services is important because it allows the contractor to enhance natural areas where they're already working as part of their maintenance. If you have any questions.
Will these natural areas ever get to a point where they're natural areas and they are maintained just naturally and we don't have to pay any money to maintain them?
They would not, and the primary reason for that, well, there are two reasons. One is that we are constantly encouraging people to come to our natural areas and discover them and interact with them. So some trampling, there's always evidence of activity, things that we have to repair. That's one reason. The second reason is that our primary maintenance issue is weed maintenance, and there are always weeds everywhere. This is true of natural areas and gardens and all landscaping.
And you found there's some additional grant money. How much is outside money in this?
For this particular contract, we're bringing in $577,000, but that does not include a project that that we received with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is a value of $1 million.
And finally, this is an extension or an expansion of an existing contract?
It's not an extension of services. The scope of services is really the same. We're bringing in more dollars so we can do more work in the same area. So do more enhancements, put in fencing, interpretive signage, and do a lot more planting. And just to add to the previous question, will these natural areas ever become natural area? With proper maintenance, especially in the first 5 years of work, restoration work, the maintenance is going to the need for maintenance is going to decrease. We'll always have to be there, be present, do some work, but it will decrease with time, with good management in the very beginning.
A question as well. Is there currently, or is there a plan to involve Chicago Public Schools teachers, students? This seems like an incredible place, or even to get the contractor to have some level of youth involvement, the level of learning that's possible, and maybe there's even some ways to shift costs from contractor to youth-led stuff. I mean, it seems like a place where we could do some meaningful stuff, or even have schools adopt certain natural areas. I'm wondering if we're doing any of that, if there's possibility for any of that.
Excellent question. We're doing that through two different ways. One is through the Nature Aces program, and so we do have existing programming, and school groups do come out to our natural areas to discover the natural areas in the Park District. In terms of volunteers and kids actually coming out and doing work, we do that through the Volunteer Stewardship Program, which is part of the Natural Areas Program. We have a Volunteer Stewardship Coordinator who is actively seeking volunteers and reaches out to schools to engage kids in weekend work days. So kids come out and they can pull weeds. They can plant wildflowers and grasses. So that is something that we are actively doing.
Thanks for a great presentation, and also thank you. I know you work very, very hard behind the scenes trying to find grant money, and once again, I know a lot of this that you brought this in through your hard work. So thanks.
Thanks.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
No objection. Will apply last to have a roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 3 from the Director of Natural Resources, authorization to enter into contracts for the supply and delivery of landscape equipment. Adam?
Good morning. It is recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to enter into contracts with 7 companies, including Arlington Power, Atlas Bobcat, Chicago United, Martin Implement Sales, Reinders, Russo Power Equipment, and T&N Chicago Supply to supply and deliver landscape equipment of various types. So the department needs all sorts of stuff to do its work, and we're more and more moving towards being reliant upon equipment and less reliant upon staff because our staff component decreases. So over the last series of years, we've brought to you a series of contracts like for our Kubotas that allows us to use our staff very smartly and very intentionally. And so this is a way for us to procure equipment such as trailers and skid steers and walk-behind blowers and pressure washers and salt spreaders and bark blowers and stand-on aerators and core aerators. That kind of equipment that allows our staff to be much more productive in the short amount of time we all have to do our work. This is was an IFB published, sent out. We had good responses in 7 categories, so that's why we have 7 companies represented here. There are a whole series of categories that we either did not get compliant responses from, or the prices we felt were too high, or there were no responses at all for a series of categories. We're working with purchasing to get those back out on the street to try to get bids to those categories. The value for this contract would be $1 million over the initial term, which would be comprised of a little over $600,000 as prices came in for the items that we listed, and then an additional dollar amount in case we need to bring in additional pieces of equipment in case other pieces of equipment that we have in our reservoir of equipment breaks down, et cetera. We want that flexibility. And I have to mention that Trish Milas here, who works in the Department of Natural Resources, has written this contract for over a year, getting this all together. That meant getting each of the contractors to bring their equipment for our staff to test it. They lent us oftentimes their equipment over a period of time, so we made sure that the equipment we're going to get on this contract is the equipment we can use and maintain correctly. And I just want to congratulate and thank Trish for that. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions? Have a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
No objection by the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Capital Improvements. There a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. The Committee on Capital Improvements is now adjourned.
On this day, Wednesday, August 8th, 2012, at 11:40 a.m., a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Board of Commissioners being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Shalaby?
Here.
Commissioner Koldeck?
Here.
Commissioner Hanlon? Commissioner Lavelle? Commissioner Salgado?
Here.
Vice President Armstrong?
Here.
President Robert?
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that General Superintendent Michael Kelly and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. At this time, the Committee of the Whole will consider various matters which are, pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, appropriately discussed in executive session. There will be a discussion of a workers' compensation claim pursuant to 5 Illinois CS 120, Section 2, subsection C 12. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. The meeting is now in executive session.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Return to open session.
The Board of Commissioners met in executive session to discuss a workers' compensation claim and have the following matters of new business. There was a discussion of the settlement agreement with George Crowley versus Chicago Park District in the amount of $124,064.50 with open medical rights. Is there a motion to approve the settlement?
So moved.
Second.
Will the Secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Commissioner Shalaby?
Aye.
Commissioner Koldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Hanlon?
Aye.
Commissioner Salgado?
Aye.
Vice President Armstrong?
Aye.
President Robert?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carried. The Committee of the Whole is now adjourned.